to be more to its original flavor. This was the last video I uploaded on the Atwater Kent 856 that belongs to my youngest grandson, the 1936 model. And I thought it was going to be the last video, you know, part 3, that's it, we're all done, you know, let's wrap it up and go to the house. Well, that's not the case. Turns out that I have to do one more video. And about a day or two, I think, after I uploaded this video, a fellow on the Antique Radio Forum came up with an offer I couldn't refuse. He had an old ratty chassis from a Atwater Kent model 145 that he tried to sell. He couldn't sell it. He says, I'll tell you what, I got to get it out of here. I'm sick of looking at it. I'll give it to anybody who wants it, just for the cost of shipping. Well, he had 2 or 3 other items there, but the Atwater Kent 145 chassis he had appealed to me, so I contacted him. I said, how much to mail it to me here in Arkansas? And he said, $14.20. I said, good deal. I took it, he mailed it to me, and it arrived yesterday. And here it is right here. I mean, we're talking ratty here, people. Look at this thing. What a mess this is. These coils are in horrible looking shape. I don't know if they're any good or not. And it's just about as nasty as you can get, I guess. Almost like the Atwater Kent 856 I restored. Well, the bottom doesn't look a whole lot better. Look at this thing. It is a total mess. I mean, it's just all torn to pieces. Everything is coming apart. But, you know, I've seen worse. The thing I'm concerned about are the coils. You know, as long as the coils are okay, we might be able to do something. All these knobs are rusted and frozen solid. You can't move them. And, of course, the dial thing, this thing here, this nub here is supposed to be resting in this slot, but it's all bent to pieces. And these wires, I mean, they just crumble. Look at that. They just crumble all the pieces. Look at all that crap crumbling down there. Just the way it is, you know. And I'm also concerned about these coils, this one here and this one here also. Anyway, you know, the question is, well, why would I buy something like this? What a piece of crap. Well, you know, I bought it as a future YouTube project for you folks. I figured if we can get this thing playing and go through it step by step, you know, we can do anything. Anything! You know, the younger guys out there who have never, you know, would never look twice at something. Look at here, we've even got part of the speaker plug has already fell out of it. The back of the plug, holy mackerel. Anyway, hopefully the transformer will be alright. I don't know. Anyway, so that's what we're going to be working on in the future. And I don't know when. Remember, if anyone has one of these, I'd appreciate you letting me know. Along with this, but I got lucky. You know, I got lucky with this chassis. And I know it doesn't look like it right now. I mean, we're really going to tear this thing apart. I mean, we are going to tear this thing down. As we used to say in the Army, we're going to tear this sucker down to parade rest. But along with this, I did not know was coming in. It was a total surprise. Was a sandwich baggie. And in the sandwich baggie, it was sitting there like that. In the sandwich baggie, look what we have here. We have an Atwater Kent speaker plug. Let's get it out of there and look at it. And there it is. Did we get lucky with this or not? I now have a speaker plug for the Atwater Kent 856. I had no idea the man that sold me this was going to include it with the chassis. Totally blew my mind. And I've already checked it. It plugs right in the back, fits perfectly. It's a little bit boogered up right around this edging material right here, but you know, I'm going to clean it up. I'm going to remove these old ratty wires, and we're going to get this thing hooked up. And before I go visit my grandson next week, I'll have it all good to go, plugged into the back of the radio, and the 856 will finally be complete. I've already checked. This is the exact same kind of plug that was originally in the 856. I thought it might have been a little too thick, but that's not true. It's exactly the one I need. Fantastic. Tremendous stroke of luck. So I got the chassis and the plug for $14.20. Heck of a deal. Heck of a deal. So let's get working on that. I decided to go ahead and set up my third hand. That's what I call this thing right here. And go ahead and put the plug in there. I'll apply the soldering iron the hot soldering iron to the tip of the connector, and then I'm sure that all the solder is melted in the barrel of that pin. I'll go ahead and grab a hold of the wire and just pull it out. Now I can probably apply more heat than usual because this is a Bakelite plug. If you do this with plastic, you got to be very careful because the heat that has to be applied to these pins will go to the plastic and melt it and screw your plug all up. But the Bakelite can take the heat a little bit more, but that doesn't mean I can go crazy with it, you know. I just want to melt it and get the wire out. One other thing, before melting the solder, which will make the solder melt faster, take a small piece of sandpaper, fine sandpaper, and sand the tips of those pins down to where you get to the solder. Get down to the shiny part of the solder. You want coarse sandpaper, fairly fine, and once you get it all the solder exposed, melts faster, works easier. The 4 wires have been removed. Kind of interesting, only the very tip of the wire was soldered. I expected it to be soldered, you know, down at least this far, you know, almost the entire length of the pin, but it didn't happen. They just put it in there, soldered just about, you know, maybe 1/8 of an inch on the end of the wire. The next part of the operation is just to take my soldering iron again, and because there's still solder down in the center of those pins. Let's see if you can see it a little better back this way. And that solder needs to be removed. So what we're going to do is use the old solder sucker. I'll take my iron, I'll put it on the solder again, heat it up, and then take the solder sucker and put it right on the top there like that, and just suck it right out of there, just like that. Okay? And we may have to do it a couple of times per pin. Well, as you can see, the wires have been removed and the solder has been extracted. It's clean all the way through in all 4 holes, although on the Atwater Kent 856 we're only going to be using 3 of these. And so all I got to do now is, you know, clean it up, wash it up, scrub it up, and put a little clear coat on it, make it look real good. I think maybe coat some navel jelly on these pins a little bit to help get the tarnish and corrosion off. That'll help a lot. That stuff does real good for stuff like that. And then, you know, get it on the Atwater Kent 856 and we're done. We'll call that a wrap again. Once again, we'll call it a wrap. So, meanwhile, while I'm doing all that crap, keep a thought or two on this Atwater Kent 145 chassis. The interesting thing about this is the output tube on this radio is a 2A5. Which means, for those of you who watched the previous videos in this series, the permanent magnet speaker I took out of the Atwater Kent 856 will go perfectly with this chassis, if we can get it to work. Well, the next time, the next part of the video should show the connector soldered up, plugged in, and the radio playing again. Well, it was a lot easier than I thought. I just took the old wires, cut them back, moved or installed a new set of color code wire ties up here, and eliminated, just whacked off the other wire and had that with the other wire ties, just threw them away. And then I put another black one right here to just kind of hold things together. I don't want those things splaying out and be, flexing back and forth if possible. Now it kind of holds it together there. It was piece cake, really. Just, I had to ream out the holes a little bit on the tips of the pins because this wire here was a little bit thicker than the old wire was. So I had to ream them out just a little bit. I just used the tip of my pocket knife and just kind of reamed it out a little bit, reamed it out, and then the wires just slipped right on through, and I soldered them in place. And then cut them off to length. Piece of cake. All right, next time we see this, we'll be listening to some really nice music. The chassis will be back in the radio, and we'll go ahead and listen to some really nice music that was supplied to me by my good friend and television mentor and now electronics mentor Brendan up in Detroit. He's a very nice feller. He sent me a couple of DVDs. They're data DVDs, which I'd never heard of before. I'm not into a lot of the new stuff, but they've got lots and lots and lots of songs on them, and I've been listening to some of them already. And we'll see if we can't come up with a nice Dick Hames. How about Dick Hames? I'm not sure how many of you ever heard of Dick Hames, but Dick Hames is next up. Tell you what, before we go to Dick Hames, I thought maybe I better show folks what I was talking about by reaming out those holes who have never done it before. After you strip back your wire, I had to strip it back about that far, at least an inch or more. And then that way the wire fit all the way up through the pins. And the insulation stopped at the bottom of the pin right about in here, inside the socket. It came up about that far, and then the wire stuck all the way up to here. And sometimes that wire didn't fit all the way through the hollow part of this these pins, so I had to take my pocket knife, like right here, and just kind of spin it back and forth around in there and kind of open up those holes. See what I'm talking about? Kind of open up the holes, and then the wire came all the way through. Once you get it soldered, by the way, and you get it all soldered, you solder it, take a pair of dikes and, you know, snip off the wire to the right length. Just take a little sandpaper, a little smooth sandpaper, and just kind of smooth the ends off, make them nice and round, make them look real good. That's all there is to it. Piece of cake, nothing to it.
The night that you told me those little white lights, the stars all seem to know that you didn't mean all those times. The night that you told me those little white lights, I tried, but there's no forgetting when evening appears. I sigh, but there's no regretting, in spite of my tears. The devil was in your heart, but heaven was in your eyes. The night that you told me those little white lights, I try, but there's no forgetting when evening appears. I sigh, but there is no regretting, in spite of my tears. Who wouldn't believe those lips? Whoever could doubt those eyes? The night that you